Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom LeNoble. It's great to be with you again today. I have Drew Tabor with me today, who is the founder of Ungambled. I love the name of this, Ungambled. It already gets me excited. Even though I'm not a gambler, it makes me think I can be ungambled and be a gambler. So, Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
I'm thrilled to have you here. So let's just start right at the beginning. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about Ungambled with the viewers. But what I really want to know too is what sparked your idea to start it.
Sure thing. I'll start with what sparked my idea. So, back in 2016, Kobe Bryant announced his final season in the NBA. And so I've been interested in finance basically since graduating from college and becoming, a real adult. Um, but I was thinking at that time, what if I bought a bunch of tickets for his final home game in Los Angeles before the season starts and then resell them the week of, thinking that the price would probably go up. And I decided not to because in my head at the time, I was thinking of it as an all or nothing thing. Like I buy them and then that last week, either the price went up or my tickets are worth nothing, which was not true, right? That was kind of the mental error I made. And I realized after the fact that what I missed in doing that was the potential to hedge them. I could have sold tickets throughout the entire season, made back my initial investment, and then basically had a free roll in the last week of the season. But I didn't realize that at the time. So fast forward to 2021, sports betting is legalized in Virginia. I live in Virginia, and a buddy of mine is showing me if you sign up for FanDuel and you sign up for DraftKings, you bet opposite sides of the same game, then using their bonuses, you make money no matter what happens. You can withdraw it, you make $1,000 in one afternoon. I was like, holy crap, this is the same concept, the same principle that I was interested in, just I'd never seen it this easy or this lucrative before. And so I looked into it for a little over a year before deciding to quit my big tech job at Oracle and go all in on this. And so what it is, the financial trading strategy is called hedging or arbitrage. And the way it works, like I just alluded to, is you bet on opposite sides of a game. So let's say it's an NBA game. Two teams are playing. Exactly one of them's going to win. Exactly one of them's going to lose. That's just the way sports work. So you bet on opposite sides of it, and if you bet at the right prices, then it doesn't matter who wins or loses, you profit no matter what.
Wow.
And then, first of all, it sounds like a scam to people, or they don't believe it's possible. And so I've actually got a book coming out soon that goes through all the nitty-gritty details of like, here's how it works, here's the math, here's examples of it to really drive home the point that it is real, it is here. Uh,
Yeah.
the reason more people are not doing it is really just because of the stigma, because the stigma of gambling is that Vegas always wins and it's better to just avoid it than to go in expecting to make money. But there's opportunity for people willing to sort of look past that stigma.
Wow. Wow, Drew, I love this. I love these stories with founders I talk to where a personal experience sparks the idea. It's not something they learned somewhere, but something happened to them and they said, I can either fix this, I can build something for this, and it sparks the creative genius. So I know you've been on this path, and I'm so excited to read your book. And I want to know when it happened along this journey that you went, yes, this is my path.
Uh, it was pretty early on, definitely during 2021. So my sort of long-term vision for this that I haven't got to yet is turning the app itself into a video game. Back in high school, I was super into Guitar Hero. I was actually at one point the number one ranked Guitar Hero player in the world. So love video games, always have. I consider them to be the basically the optimal method of human computer interaction, um, because the game incentivizes you to push all the buttons and do everything in specific patterns. And if you're able to take something like financial arbitrage and program that into a video game format, you can get regular people to be betting arbitrage on their phones and they're having fun while they're doing it. So they make money and they have fun. It's kind of my long
Hey,
term.
wow. Yeah, it sounds like a good deal to me. I'm ready. And I don't gamble, but have make money and have fun at the same time has been the goal of my whole life. So tell me this. Since you started this journey, are you fundamentally different today as a person than when you started? What's changed for you as a person?
The biggest thing is starting a business, you really need to embrace responsibility and accountability. And that's difficult at first, coming from as a software engineer in the 2010s, late 2010s. It was kind of, to some, not really a bubble, but we were paid very well relative to other similar engineering disciplines just because of like supply and demand. Software was all the rage. And so it kind of got pampered to a degree in big tech. And then setting that aside and going out and entering the world of business where you make money by selling things was kind of harsh. Uh, Needed some adjustments to that, really, to embracing that. But over time, you practice, you learn. But yeah, I would say that really sort of rounded me out as a person. I would say being
Which
able
is,
to transact business with people in addition to just being like friendly with them. Like those are kind of two different poles, I
yeah.
guess, interact with people.
Yeah, I find when I talk to people that there's someone in their early life that really influenced them and to who they are today. That there's something happens, there's somebody in that early picture that you can foot back to and know they had an influence. Who was that for you, Drew?
It's a good question. I think probably my dad is the first person that comes to mind. So my parents got divorced when I was in second grade. I was 7 years old, and so I grew up with my dad in his house, my sister and I. And he was, I would say, traditionally stoic, very masculine guy. And he gave us a lot of space to basically do whatever we want. So for me, what that looked like was I played Guitar Hero for 2 or 3 hours every day after, after schoolwork, after sports, all that. And he never really discouraged that in any way. He just kind of gave us space to pursue whatever we wanted. And so I think like having full agency over my own time and making my own decisions is more natural to me because of that. Whereas in the corporate world, it's like most of your time and effort goes into like fitting in, I feel like, and that it's a useful skill, don't get me wrong, but that's more unnatural to me given that I was already used to having so much agency over my own time.
Interesting, interesting. I love that. My first thought when you said that is 2 or 3 hours of Guitar Hero, and look at you, what you're doing today. It helps us realize that video games, the perception that some people have of them, is meaningless. Um, and that people still get creative and even learn from doing that. Me, I would have probably been 6 hours because I would have been so addicted, I would have never stopped. We're in this time of year, and I talk to people and I hear all this stuff about goals and resolutions, which I've stopped years ago. I do something I call setting intentions, which I guess somebody could challenge me and say it's just another word for the same thing. But for me, it isn't. I've been doing a practice for over 35 years that works very well for me, and something I'm going to build a workshop around it. But for now, I want to ask you in this time of year, in fact, we talked about it briefly, we sort of ask ourselves to either slow down or get organized or think of priorities. What has that been for you as this new year is unfolding?
Well, I'm getting married in July, so that's a big part of it.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So that's sort of one thing I'm focused on. And then the other one is sort of operationalizing sales and marketing for the business. My background is software and technology, and so we've kind of already done that part, and now we need to operationalize sales and marketing and have business, you know, 100% operational by the end of the year is the goal.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your upcoming marriage. It's so exciting and get ready because life is, I don't mean about the marriage part, but the wedding part is it'll take everything you got out of you because it just has a life of its own. I equate it to this book launch I just did where you just suddenly realize your life has been taken over by something. But my
Hmm.
word of wisdom to you about it is to just enjoy because it gets so wrapped up in the prep and stuff and all the busyness of it. And that day is for you and your sweetheart to enjoy and set the new life you're going to have together. So congratulations. I'd love to know what personal values Drew lives by? We all sort of bring our own values to the table. What are those for you?
It's a good question. I've actually got a tattoo from one of Ray Dalio's books called Principles. Um, I think that was the first book I read that really like spoke to me in terms of he calls them principles, and I guess there's a bit of a difference between principles and values, but they're kind of in the same mental space. Um, so for him, it's having for him and by extension me, because again, it resonated with me. It was like having good personal relationships with people and being able to pursue your own interests, ideally sort of without guardrails. And so for me, like I was always good at math. I learned how to do technology. I love video games. It's like I'm going to create a financial trading video game. That's my, my purpose, my passion. Um, but I guess underlying that, the values are I'm building it as a mass market B2C product, which means other people are getting the value. Whereas a lot of professional bettors, they figure out they can make money and then they kind of like withdraw into themselves. Like they make all the money for themselves and there's not really a lot of sharing it. They're very secretive people for the most part. And so I think bringing that value to other people and, basically contributing to society and humanity is sort of one of my underlying values.
I have this image that there are people watching this podcast that are as we're talking are trying to find Ungambled right now because I think the name one grabs your attention. It certainly piques one's interest that you can win while losing. I love that idea, right? Because life is sort of like that if we allow it to be, right? So tell me this. I'm interested about a decision that you were required to make that required you to act before you felt ready.
Hmm. I would say leaving my cushy corporate job to pursue building a business for the first time is probably the most obvious one. And you can go online and sort of read people's opinions about this. The consensus is you're never really going to feel ready. You just have to do it and then like make it up as you go. I think there's a quote from, I want to say Tim Ferriss that I really like. It's in the long run, being willing to improvise is more important than making a perfect plan in advance. And that sort of stuck with me. And it was like, all right, well, I'm going to need to
Yeah,
improvise at some point. Better get some practice in and, get comfortable
yeah,
with
I
it.
love this. I love this. I remember when I left my corporate jobs and I thought, I started this consulting practice. I thought this is never going to work. I'm going to miss having a team. I'm going to miss the structure. I'm going to miss, I had all this structure of knowing in my head about what was going to happen. And after I started, it was like I still had many of those things, but the thing that I realized the most is my time was my own more because when you were doing something that way for someone in that role, um, they didn't want you to stay. They didn't want you to stay late because it cost them too much money if you stayed around. You actually had some of your own time back, which is an interesting thing. Not, I think, when you're building something like you are, where you probably get into it and can't stop. Has your relationship with risk changed at all as you've been working on Gambled? Tell us about it.
It has substantially. I would say I'm far better at realistically assessing risk now than I was 5 years ago. Again, as a corporate employee, you're sort of shielded from a lot of reality. Like you get a paycheck every 2 weeks and the money just appears in your account. And, in large part, you don't really need to know how it got there. You just need to know that it keeps happening. Um, and so like that entire world, that entire realm of risks just like doesn't exist to you as a corporate employee. And then you get out, you try to start a business, you need to sell stuff, you get a lot better sense of like what are the actual risks and like what are the consequences of making a decision one way or the other. And just like the more practice you get with that, the better you get at it. Obviously, that's true of most things, I think. Um, but yeah, that was a little rambly, but I would say, yeah, I've gotten
No,
much
that was
better.
good. That was good. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Tell me this. How does Drew know when to pivot or push through?
I'll give you another quote. I think this one's from Mark Andreessen. He said, starting a business is a lot like navigating a maze. And it gets interesting for he's an investor, obviously. He said it gets interesting for investors once the founder comes out of the maze and is like, I figured it out. And so that's really the last 6 months or so I've kind of emerged from the maze. But in going through the maze, getting back to your question, if you're not at a dead end yet and you think there's something worth pushing for, you keep doing it. But at some point, you realize you're at a dead end, and then you have to make the decision to backtrack out of the dead end and try a different path through the maze, which would be a pivot in this analogy.
Yes.
It's I don't have any like hard and fast rules for like when to pivot. I mostly improvise and just kind of went by gut feel. It's probably not super helpful for other people looking to emulate it, but it's the truth.
Yeah, I'm learning it. I'm not learning. I've known it for a while, and I'm just having it affirmed is a better way to say it, that there are many of us that do go by our gut. And I think people are just willing to talk about it a little more because there was a period, certainly in my career, if you said you were using your gut or your intuition, people slapped you with the data to question.
Doesn't
And
reassure people.
yeah, I can remember going into companies, boards would send me in to fix something, and I could walk in the door and kind of smell what was going on, but I knew I had to validate it. But I like this idea that I'm hearing more people talk about it because I think there's a balance of listening to your gut, your intuition, whatever you want to might call it, and then of course validating it with something, but to not try and discount it because you don't have the data first. There's, I think, a balance there that I really like, and I'm enjoying hearing from people. I know in my career, some of my biggest mistakes have led to my biggest successes. Have you ever had a mistake that led to one of your big successes?
So I would say one of my sort of risk heuristics I use is from Nassim Taleb. It's never take risks that can result in fatality, basically. So no business risks that are going to put you out of business if they don't pan out. So within that constraint, taking small risks and having them fail is actually a good thing because that gives you information on what does and doesn't work. And so it's more of like a spray and pray type approach for taking small risks and complete abstinence from taking existential risks. Uh, and so through that light, there's lots of mistakes that have eventually led to the big, breakthrough of the last 6 months or so, where now we're marketing this publicly and figured out all of the details of how to offer it publicly, legally, in compliance with terms and conditions, all that jazz, all the stuff people want to validate that it's not a scam before they try to use it. All that fell into place through lots of mistakes and lots of errors over the previous 5 years.
Interesting, interesting. I want to ask you a question about fear. I know that certainly for me at times in my life, not as much anymore, where fear has been sort of a stop sign or certainly a caution sign. And how do you recognize when fear is really I just being given some information versus this means I should stop or raise the yellow flag?
So what I normally do, fear is an emotional response, right? And as a decision maker, typically you don't want to make emotional decisions. Now, you can consider your emotional state in making those decisions, but I think what you're alluding to would be you have a fear of something. My solution is to not take action immediately after that. So it's called tilted in poker, where you either get too high or too low, and then that impacts your decision making, and results are worse than they would be if you'd kind of kept even keel. So what I like to do is, whenever something goes wrong or you feel that sense of fear, is like, nope, stop. I'm not going to make it worse. I'm going to get a night's sleep, come back tomorrow, uh, analyze it rationally, and sort of decide
That's
what to do.
it.
So it's self-restraint, I guess I would say
I
is my.
loved I love Tilted. It reminds me, I went to this conference one time and I met a colleague there, and when I go there, I'm not a big gambler, although you may change that. And so he talked me into going to playing. I can't even remember what we were playing, what machine, but he said the only way to do this, and he's a brilliant engineer.
Mhm.
And he said, the only way to do this is to use $100, make $100 bets and you'll be fine. And so I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I can play with this, I'm like in the slot machines with nickels, maybe a quarter. I'm daring. And so, all right, I'm going to go with it and see what happens. And so we did it for a while, and I had like I think $1,200 in my pocket, and I was like feeling pretty good. I think I'd spent three, and I got $1,200, right? And so I said, I'm going to bed. I've got a full day tomorrow. Because no, this is just getting good. Now's the time when you can really, I'm going to bed. So we met for breakfast this next morning. And I love this tilted thing because I still had my $1,200 in my pocket. He came back at a loss. I think because he didn't respect tilted of when it's time to um, check in with ourselves and when the emotion of something, when the excitement of something has taken over versus rationality. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to anything about what I said, but in that real world picture for me, I was real happy. Tell me this. What have you learned about trust on this journey with Ungambled, leaving your corporate job? What have you learned about even getting married? What have you learned about trust in these recent years?
I think I took it for granted to some degree. I've been blessed in that I've had a lot of people in my life that I could trust absolutely, basically from a young age. And so I don't think until I started doing business things, I appreciated maybe how rare that was. Because especially you're meeting someone for the first time, and they're trying to sell you something, and you just assume you can trust them. It's a recipe for making a lot of mistakes a lot of the time. Um, so again, in terms of like risk assessment, that's one of the things that I kind of needed to recalibrate because I was maybe a little too trusting going in, and now it's something that I'm more I appreciate it and I value it, but I'm more skeptical about, immediate trust from salesmen, I guess.
Yes, yes, yes. I had somebody on the podcast and I love, she told me that, I really trust a lot of people. And she said, but my business life, especially recent years, I learned to continue to trust, but now I verify. And I thought that was really brilliant, a real balance to not losing the ability to trust and coming from a place of trusting, but to take a moment to verify. Drew, tell me this, what are you most proud of? And I'm interested in knowing, not publicly, but personally, what are you most proud of?
Good question. I think by nature, I just kind of, this is going to sound really strange, but like I kind of reject the idea of pride. Um, like I'm not the kind of person to like get complacent with something. Like I'm a lot more interested in what's to come than what I've already done. So like I was the number one Guitar Hero player in the world. Am I proud of that? Like I guess so, but I'm not hanging my hat on that and like running victory laps. Like I moved on to something else, just kind of like staying active. Um, Getting married. I think I've got a good wife lined up, so I guess I'm proud of that. But again, it's not. I'm not like wallowing in pride in the same way I think a lot of people are based on their past accomplishments.
Yes, I think we have that little bit of, okay, now what's next, right? We did
Yeah.
this, but now that that's done, what's next? Somebody asked me the other day, Tom, do you ever rest? And my answer was, I am resting. You better get ready to see what's happening next. They were like, oh dear God, if he's resting, we're all in trouble. So I want to know, I think it's not only in the new year, but I think in life, but especially at this time of year, sometimes have you had to put a boundary in that protects your sustainability, that allows you to make sure you keep going? And what is it?
Absolutely. Setting boundaries more firmly is another thing I've learned in the last few years that I wasn't really good at before. It's kind of by nature. Like if somebody wanted or needed help, I would offer them help because that was, the right thing to do. And that was kind of the end of that logic in my head at the time. Um, but yeah, since then, you sort of realize some people are acting like they need help to sucker you into something. And it's better to recognize that and put up a boundary. Like I'm not going to, reply to this email or engage with this person because they're going to end up sucking a lot of my time and I don't get anything out of it. It drains me emotionally, and I can't put my time and effort towards things that I do want to. Um, and then in terms of like, work life balance is a popular one. Definitely sort of had to set some boundaries there where like with my fiance, like we'll have our time together and we'll do that like over the holidays, for example. I try to turn off work brain and like fully present. We enjoy the holidays
Yeah.
and everything. But now it's first week of January, back to work. It's like, okay, we're not going to be spending, 8 hours a day with each other anymore. I need to turn my attention back to doing work.
Yes.
It's going to go down to, 2 hours a day. So that's been important.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had clients that have brought to me different kind of circumstances around this idea of boundaries. And I find that they show up a lot where we aren't balancing things that get in excess. And it shows up in people's relationships where the work, call it the work tank, gets a little too full, and we forget that this tank is not maybe as full as it needs to be, or it's getting a little depleted, kind of like the car does, and what can happen there, and how we add that balance. And I've even had to coach a few people of put it on your calendar.
Yeah. There's
Carve
actually one other insight I've got for this one. I like to think of chunks of time as like phases, right? So if I just had a holiday phase where I was spending a lot of time socializing with friends and family, now that it's January, the pendulum kind of swings back the other direction, and now I can be more work focused. But the idea of phases is like you need to kind of have like a top level balance more so than like every
yes,
single needs to be like perfectly proportioned. Because like different days look different. Some days are going to work all day, other days are Saturdays and you don't have any plans and you can just be
yeah,
a block.
yeah. Yes, it's one of the things I love about working with Gen Z, the Zoomers. I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of generations in my career, and I think that we've talked about work-life balance in many iterations of generations, and I think there's an element of demanding it, and um, we're probably going to call it something different than work-life balance, but demanding this idea of if the work gets done, isn't that what matters?
Mhm.
It should matter when I'm doing it. I know certain positions does matter, let's face that, but it doesn't matter where I am, when I'm getting it done. Did the work get done? And this idea of recognizing that, which I know to be true, I just never did a good job of it, of the recharging, if you will, the even your mobile phone has to get plugged in. Your devices have to get plugged in if you want them to keep going. And there's a metaphor, I think, for us there about how that works for our own selves is whatever feeds us other than the work, which can feed us as well. But there's other things to balance it out. And I love that that focus is happening more. It's very refreshing to me. Um, I'm interested to know, um, have you ever said no to growth because it just wasn't aligned with your values or who you are?
Too much, honestly. I did not. So I've been building out Ungambled for it'll be 5 years in February. We did not try to grow really until this past November. So, I don't know if you're familiar with like the venture capital space, but this
I
was
am.
see to them, right? Spent 4.5 years doing research and development without really trying to market the business or monetize it or run it properly. Like they don't want to hear any of that. But I said no to growth basically until the product got to a high enough quality point that it would be easy to market and sell. And my rationale through that was the more we can invest upfront in automation and making sure everything is built properly, without needing to also manage a sales team and a marketing team. And, it creates enough just like day-to-day noise that you lose that focus time needed to make the real breakthroughs. And so the way I structured it was let's concentrate the breakthroughs into the beginning as much as possible, figure out what our product, what our service offering looks like, and then sell the proper version of it rather than, having an entire uh, ship to steer through every pivot. Like the leaner you are in the beginning, the easier it is to pivot, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just gave me an idea for a new podcast. My experiences with venture capitalists. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's a little bit of each that I know I've experienced over the years. Some extraordinary people, though. Tell me, what's the boldest vision? What comes next? What's happening next with you and Ungambled, other than your wedding?
The bold vision is, like I said earlier, the video game. If I can get it to a point, so well, let me back up. Financial hedging is what hedge funds do on Wall Street, right? This is not common knowledge by any stretch, but within the sports betting financial vertical, arbitrage opportunities can last for several minutes, long enough that if you just have a phone and two sportsbook apps, you can do this like in your free time, day to day. Sort of going back to the work-life balance. You're sitting on your couch, you can make $100 an hour betting arbitrage from your phone. I think that's a lot more appealing to people than like the market has not materialized for it yet. I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to be the first one to make it easy enough for regular people to do advanced hedge fund strategies. And then it becomes a mass market product. And as a video game, like I said, people also have fun doing it. So the analogy I like to use is if you could sit on your couch and play Angry Birds for an hour and make $100, would you do it? And for most people, the answer to that is yes. And so like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
old
yeah.
video to get there.
You've got me interested, Drew. Maybe I need to be one of your initial early adopters, I think we used to call them. I don't know if we call them that anymore, but absolutely. So I'm excited for what you're doing with Ungambled. It sounds like a really exciting way of taking something that has some stigma to it, that also has some excitement, that people have passion for, that people really, really have feelings about, good or bad, and maybe even normalizing it a little bit into something that's just fun that can make you some money at the same time. Hey, why not, right? So tell
Exactly.
me something. I'd love to ask this, especially with somebody with your brain and your experience. Technology is just racing forward. I happen to believe it always has been. I remember, I've said this on this podcast before, I watched the first fax. It dates me a bit, but I remember us all standing around and this fax went from DC to Atlanta or wherever it went. And it was sort of like, wow, that was magic. And then we had you know, other technologies. The email came along, and now we just want to get away from it. And everybody thought they were going to lose their job over email and the internet and all these things. Now we're in this AI time that is, there's so much going on. I get to interview so many people here that are working in AI. It's been really fascinating at all the different places it's being used. And I'm curious as it races forward, how you see yourself keeping up with that technology moving forward, along with sustainability, just keeping the lights on. How does that balance happen?
I suppose I'm kind of at the vanguard of using AI in business. I studied artificial intelligence back in college as my capstone. I graduated 2014, so I'm not old, but by technology standards, AI has come a long way in the last 12 years. And so the way I look at AI as a in the context of business is it's it gives you an unprecedented level of leverage. So whatever is in your head, AI can make that a reality. The bottleneck is not the AI tooling, it's what's in your head. And so one person who like really understands something can use AI tool and they can exceed the output of an entire team of people in much shorter time. Actually, I did like a quick sort of order of magnitude calculation in my book towards the end, and I estimate that using AI, let's say in one 3 hour session in the afternoon, is about 1,000 times more cost effective than hiring a mediocre engineer. So that would be, someone early in their career who like doesn't have all of the mental models of like, here's how technology works at every single layer. I already understand those things, so I can tell AI like build this feature, it needs this in the database, this business logic, this UI, go do it, and 10 minutes later it exists.
Amazing.
Whereas, 5 years ago, while I was at Oracle, we had a 4-person, 5-person team with specialized roles in order to make that happen. And building what takes 10 minutes now would take realistically weeks, and costs
Amazing.
hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of $20 a month.
Yeah, it's I tell people almost every day, I have to say to somebody, you can have your judgment about AI, it's not going away, and if you're not embracing it at some level, you're going to be left behind. You may feel fine with that, but that's a reality of it. I have to laugh sometimes because I use it a bit for editing or research and stuff, and I find myself every now and then yelling at it, and it's really funny. I'm like, catch myself like, Tom, you're yelling at the computer. You know, you wouldn't even do this to a human. You're yelling at this person is, And so tell me this. Um, I want to know what is going on right now for you that you are thinking about that is a future version of yourself that you're sort of actively becoming as we go into this new year. What are you stepping into that is sort of a new suit, if you will, for Drew?
Oh, that's a great question. So before starting Ungambled, I like reading a lot of nonfiction books just for pleasure, which I know I'm a weirdo. But over the years, I kind of, navigated the different nonfiction spaces and found one that was always interesting to me, basically. And that was people who are sort of at the end of their careers who are doing like autobiography, like your autobiography. I read about half of that before this podcast. But people who are towards the end of their careers, sort of retrospectively being like, I'm not a professional writer. Here's my career. Here's what I did. Here's all the knowledge concentrated into a couple hundred pages. Like that was the sweet spot for me. And most of the ones I read about like finance were from like Ray Dalio, Nassim Taleb, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. And so I think fittingly, sort of the person I'm becoming is a professional hedge fund manager. Got hedging strategies. I'm applying them to sports betting and, marketing it in a novel way instead of being a traditional hedge fund where there's a bunch of high net worth private investors and it's kind of happening in the background and not public. I'm trying to bring it to the general public.
Love this. What does legacy mean to you at this stage of your life? What does the word legacy mean?
That's another good question. I haven't thought about it a ton. That kind of goes back to the pride thing too, is like I spend most of my time and attention thinking about what's next and going on adventures more so than retrospecting. But I think as I get older, I come to appreciate it more. Legacy is like it's the impact you had on other people that other people remember, I guess is how I would put it. So, as a big tech corporate employee, like there is no legacy. You are a cog in a machine and nobody's going to remember that. So you got to actually do something meaningful to other people in order to even have a legacy in the first
Yeah.
place.
It's interesting. I got asked this question recently. I do a lot of philanthropy, and somebody asked me, and it kind of struck me, and it challenged me to look at the question. And I realized that legacy for me was more about something perpetuating and continuing long after I'm gone versus more than it was about me personally. I don't like needing my name and lights or in a building as much as I'd like to create a way that the change and the effect that I'm having somehow continues on, that I aspire others to do it. So I love this idea. I have a couple questions for you before we close today. Um, what is your what is your big hope for the world right now?
Hmm. Yes, instinctively, I would say like, though I'm not a political person at all. I just find the entire enterprise kind of repulsive. So I guess my answer to that would be like learn to get along with people who are different than you. It's not that hard. If people buy into that and you can just live in harmony, then like
Yeah,
the war crap and all the tribal conflict, like I've just never liked that.
yeah, yeah. I've learned in this life over and over again, we're far, far more alike than we will ever be different. I
Yeah.
had Thanksgiving dinner and I brought a group of people together to the table here on Maui that would never have sat in the room together. and I'm in the kitchen cooking, and it's open space so I can see and listen to the conversation. And I, at one point, leaned back and just observed that this group of people that would never be together were all engaging in conversation and having a really great time. And out in the world, that wouldn't happen. And how it could be such a better place if we had that respect and awareness as we're moving around in our day. Drew, I love to ask this question, so I'm going to ask it of you. If um, your younger self, little boy Drew, were to watch this podcast we just did, what would you tell him?
Stay the course, I guess. It's all the mistakes shape who you become. You can't take a shortcut and bypass the mistakes. But yeah, I've thought about that before. It's like, what advice would I give? It's like it's sort of like the time travel paradox thing, right? If you go back in time and you change history, then you don't get to where you are today. And if you're
Yes.
happy with where you are today, then don't change anything.
Yes, yes. And I love that you're reading my book. When you finish it, hopefully you get that that was the whole mission for me, for my readers, was who you are today is the sum parts of who you've been. Not only own them all, but they were all part of the journey that you likely wouldn't be who you are without them all. So, Drew Tabor, this has been an exceptional time with you. I want to thank you. I'm excited about Ungambled and what's coming up for you in your personal life as well. Please tell the viewers what you'd like for them to know about Ungambled, about how we find you if you're interested in that. Anything that you want to share, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So the website is www.ungambled.com. There is a D at the end, ungambled. Um, So we are currently only offering our services in legal online sports betting states. So unfortunately, Hawaii and California do not have online betting yet. Uh, but yeah, that's it. We use sports bet hedging strategies for the bonuses, and I'm a little hesitant to name specific numbers, but our customers are reliably profiting thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, even if they have never bet on sports before. And the idea is we actually want people who are not actively betting on sports because they're not going to feel that same sort of addictive emotional pull. Betting hedges instead of single bets is candidly boring in a lot of ways because you know you're going to win regardless of which of your two bets wins, and you don't really need to pay attention to the game or think about it at all. It's just kind of a pure financial relationship with sports betting. And I think that appeals to a lot of people who are not currently betting, but who essentially the way I look at it is your sportsbook accounts are a financial asset that a lot of people just aren't using. If you're
Yeah.
not going to recreationally bet, then use that asset, make, five, 10, $20,000, and then be on your merry way. And so that's sort of the ungambled demographic as it stands today. And my hope is in the next year, next 2 years, we can sort of expand it and make it easier to use and more profitable and
Yeah, yeah.
more appealing to more people.
You certainly have my interest, and I suspect a few viewers are scratching their head right now and searching as they watch this or whenever they watch it. Drew, thank you for being with me on Opening Pathways today.
Thank you.
And to my viewers, this is Tom LeNoble, and I'll see you next time.